Is it worth getting the 13-inch M4 iPad Pro over the 11-inch for an extra $300? Well, in this video, I'm gonna compare everything from using it handheld, using the keyboard, the performance, the displays, speakers, and more. And by the end of this video, it's gonna be an easy choice. Now, both these iPads got thinner and lighter, but the 13-inch one had the biggest losses. And can I tell a difference in thickness holding them in my hand? Honestly, yes, I can. The 13-inch definitely feels thinner, and as far as weight, it's way less of a difference than we had before, at least what you can feel. Now, I would have never done handheld gaming with the previous 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but I've spent a decent amount of time gaming with this new 13-inch, and it is actually possible without too much hand fatigue because of the lightweight. It's about a quarter pound lighter, and that makes all the difference compared to the previous one. Now, I will say, if you're gonna do long gaming sessions, the 11-inch is still nicer because it is lighter overall, but if you've always wanted that large screen gaming experience, you can now do so with this large iPad. And you guys can see just how much larger the screen display size is. It's only a 2-inch difference, but it's actually about 25% more screen real estate. And that is not just because of the larger size, but the aspect ratio is also different. Now, because of that, if you're watching movies, you don't get that much of a larger screen size, especially with ultra wide videos, and that is quite surprising. So don't expect it to be too much bigger. But if you are using it for productivity, you get quite a bit more screen real estate space, especially if you're using split screen or if you're using Stage Manager, you get more vertical space, and that is nice. And then if you're doing things like video editing or photo editing, here you can see how much more of the timeline is visible, and that allows you to see not only my main video, but also any titles, generators, effects, backgrounds, and the music track instead of just my main video track, and a lot more of my media as well. So if you're gonna be using this for productivity, that is really nice. Now, sticking with the displays, thankfully both of these now use the same display tech, both tandem OLED, which gets super bright. Now, some people said that the 13-inch looks brighter. I haven't seen that in our tests. Both are incredibly bright and very even. Now, if you're planning to get one of the new Magic keyboards, this is where we have some differences. You guys can see for yourselves how much larger this keyboard is. The keycaps are larger, especially the ones on the side. They are full size instead of these mini keys. And even though you can get used to using the smaller one and type just fine, the larger one gives you a better experience. And with that, we have the trackpads. You guys see just how much larger the trackpad on the 13 inches. This pretty much matches up to a 13-inch MacBook Air. Now, of course, it is $50 more expensive on the 13-inch keyboard instead of the 11-inch. And then with that, that adds weight. So holding him like this, you definitely notice the 13-inch weight more so, but thankfully now it weighs about as much as an M3 MacBook Air instead of weighing the previous 3.1 pounds. So if you're gonna do a lot of typing, I would say the 13-inch is the way to go, unless you like to go on airplanes where the small tray tables don't have a lot of room. That's where the 11-inch shines. And if you're curious about the front-facing cameras, the hardware is identical, but we have one small difference. Here is the landscape camera on the 11-inch iPad Pro, and here is the 13-inch iPad Pro, which has the camera a little bit higher up, and that gives you a more pleasing angle. Both of these only support the new Apple Pencil Pro. They perform the same, but if you're gonna mainly be taking notes, the 11-inch is a lot more comfortable. But if you like to draw, a lot of people prefer their larger screen size for a larger canvas. Now, we also should have a difference in speakers. Typically, the larger the device, the better the speakers, but this one is thinner. So let's go ahead and listen to the differences. Now, you guys heard that for yourselves. The thinness of the 13-inch doesn't matter. Apple did a great job. Not only is it quite a bit louder, it has much better bass, and it is more balanced overall. 11-inch does not sound bad, but the 13 is clearly better. Now, what about performance? Both of these have the identical specs. And here in Geekbench, we have minor differences. In single core, it is slightly faster, and the same thing goes in multi-core, but the difference is very small. Now, as far as graphics performance, you guys can see they literally scored the same. Apple said that they improved thermal performance by about 20%, so that part of it is great. So I also wanted to look at 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme Stress Test, which is going to run for 20 minutes. And looking at these results, the 13-inch does score better thermally. As far as the best loop score, we only have about a 2% difference, but after 20 minutes, the 13-inch maintains its performance better. It actually gets over 11% better frames per second because it's larger, the heat can spread out more, and that is a noticeable difference. Now, with that said, even the 11-inch with the M4 can run even the most demanding games at pretty much max settings, close to 120 frames per second, so it's still very impressive. Now, as far as the most demanding real-world productivity tasks, I have Lightroom opened right here with a bunch of raw edited images, and the difference is very minor, 231 compared to 234, so don't expect a big difference in performance. Now, in terms of video editing, I have some tough footage here with effects. And I already showed you guys the difference in screen real estate. I see so much more clips, so much more in the timeline, even though my video playback window is the same size, so that is nice. But in terms of actual performance, we only have a 1 second difference, 3 minutes and 2 seconds for 11, 303 for the 13-inch. So it's within margin of error. Now, in terms of battery life, you might think that the 13-inch would be better because it does have a larger battery, but when Apple slimmed these down, the 13-inch actually got a smaller battery compared to the previous version, whereas the 11-inch, the battery actually increased by about 9%. And I didn't run my own battery tests, but Dave Lee did a bunch of testing, and it turns out that the 11-inch consistently gets better battery life than the 13-inch. So comparing all of those differences, should you get the 11-inch or should you get the 13-inch? Well, in my opinion, if you're gonna spend more time using the keyboard, and if this thing is gonna be your main computing device instead of a MacBook, I think that the 13-inch is well worth the extra cost. You have the better speakers, the full-size keyboard, that is really nice. But if this is gonna be more of an accessory or you're gonna spend more time hand holding this device, then I think the 11-inch is a killer deal, and thankfully they have the same screens now, and you're gonna be saving between $300 or $350 if you wanna get a keyboard for it, and that's a huge price difference, especially when the performance is also the same. So I think bang for the buck, the 11-inch is definitely the way to go. But you guys let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Click that circle above to subscribe and check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next one.